We're all dealing with feeling. We're all coping with feeling. Looking inside your heart is the place that you should start. Then you can heal. Then you can be real. So open up your heart. It's time to start. Dealing with feeling. Coping with feeling. Open up your heart. It's time to start.
Welcome to Feeling Fridays with Dr. James Porter and Karen White Porter, author and counselor. And we are here today to talk about feelings. We call it Feelings Friday because we want to introduce new ways of looking at feelings through self-expression and also the Marshall Rosenberg conflict resolution, in terms of how we as adults and parents can work together to create a nice environment for children, and also to help me, the author, write a basal reader for children who are just learning to read. So the first thing they learn how to read is how to express their feelings using the first 40 sight words that they've learned to use. So today we're going to talk about the feeling of loneliness. And as a counselor, is that something that you come across a lot, Dr. Porter?
Well, I see a lot of people, so that's why I don't feel lonely. I'm kidding. Yeah, actually, I don't even necessarily have to always hear people say I'm lonely. But a lot of people do actually, complain about loneliness too. But what I notice is that they'll be talking about feeling crazy, feeling depressed, feeling like their life's going nowhere, feeling intense anxiety, and we'll find out they're not engaging socially. And I'll ask questions like, when did you notice this happen? And they'll say, when I went home between semesters, or when I moved here to this town, or when I got a new apartment. And it turns out that they're just not getting the necessary regular engagement with people and the complexity that brings. I even tell some people, you need the disruption of having a roommate, for example, or getting out more. You need that kind of unpredictability. So yes, loneliness, aloneness, disconnection, very big deal. And it's nice when actually a thing I do is when somebody tells me a story about something that happened, I'll say, how did you feel in that moment? And a lot of times only then is the time a person will look inside and consider what the word is for what they're feeling. And when I hear lonely, it's like the whole room relaxes in my counseling office, and it seems like we know what's going on. So loneliness is very important.
And I just quickly Googled it and they said that children as young as 6 can feel lonely. And just normal children who for some reason aren't included in some kind of activity, they can feel lonely. And so I want to share with you
let me ask you something real quick. Did they say as early as 6, meaning from age 0 to 5? They don't.
Yeah, I think
you never know what you're going to get with Google.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine, my belief is children feel these things as early as 0.
Yeah, I mean, basically you're in the womb and you are learning what it's like to be really, really, really nestled inside someone.
But I think like an average family where the mom and dad is always attentive to the child's needs, playing with them, enriching them, putting them in social situations. Normally children from ages 0 to 2 or 3 just do parallel play. They're not doing, play that in as much that requires social interaction. So when they come into that more social age of, I remember our daughter when we tried to put her in soccer, and she and Kieran like went and played in the mud in the middle of the soccer field. Because it was more interesting than that whole game, the whole thing that, and then I think later on they develop that's something, that sociability, that connection that they make when they get more autonomous. Children value that connection with their peers even more.
Yeah, the child that is newborn has a profoundly powerful capacity for feeling lonely. It starts, what happens after age 6 is just a continuation of what's been going on from age 0 through age 5. Part of the loneliness instinct, I'll say, is that you will die if you're left alone as a child of a certain age. And you will also not flourish and thrive if you're not touched and attended to on a regular basis. And of course, you and I and everybody knows that attention when you're young also involves extremely practical life support things like changing diapers, feeding, and that sort of thing. But the comfort of a human being's presence and the absence of that and the discomfort with it is keenly felt by those from of any age starting.
So do you think that as you get older, maybe that our emotions are honed, or maybe we, just like words, we start to
I think it's like that. Yeah, we learn a whole lot more complexity in terms of interrelating in a parallel way. That's a form of new activity and learning and that sort of thing. And then we go into more engaged play with other kids. And I'm not exactly sure why parallel play happens first. I do know that babies engage directly with parents. And when they're held, it's a whole communication.
Yeah, and very important.
Yeah. So, but yes, there's this thing, right, when they do, and you're more aware of early childhood than I am, especially elementary ages and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, the parallel play to the more engaged play is, I think that has to do with what the environment is, who's in the environment. Excuse me, but it does develop.
Yeah.
It does develop in unique ways for everybody. But yeah, I guess you're saying there are predictable patterns. So yeah.
Yeah.
I
So
just do want to say that loneliness probably seems different at each stage. There we go.
So I put together a thumbnail sketch that shows different feelings of the feeling of lonely, like a situation where somebody might feel lonely. And as I was putting this together today, I thought to myself, oh my goodness, maybe I shouldn't have it like this. The plot, these are just thumbnail sketches. So there's a little kid at the top of the hill with a big ball, and there's children at the bottom playing boxball, and they're having fun playing boxball, and he's up there on the top of the hill playing with his big ball, and they have a little ball that they're throwing around to play their ball game. And then he asked, can I play with you? And they're trying to put the ball in the box. And so they say, no, we can't, because they look and they see his ball is so big and they have a little ball and they can each put a ball in their box, but his ball won't fit. And so they won't play with him because they're trying to put their little balls in that box. And then he asked, please, can I play? And they said, no. And he says, I can play here with you, and I can play there with you. And they keep saying, no, 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 no. And finally, he just gives up. And he says, I feel lonely when you won't play with me. And then of course, the happy ending that we all wish would happen. One of the kids says, look at Ed, he feels lonely. What can we do? And I see you feel lonely. What can we do? And so they say, you can use this ball for box ball. And he says, thank you. I feel included now. But that's from last week. So my concern is that it's a little artificial. And I'm thinking maybe in real life, people won't let you play. And maybe in real life, you got to go find another game to play with somebody else.
That's a little more complex.
Yeah. I mean, maybe I should, maybe I don't know.
No, I think it is a little more complex. And I'm not saying that's a problem. Because you have I guess for you want to show it, you want to show different sort of endings, I guess, and how you get to those endings.
Yeah, and he probably should say, why won't you play with me? You know, because, well, the box is too small for your big ball.
Okay. Yeah. So okay, that makes sense to me, because even though, again, it's to me, that's good dialogue. That's good informational dialogue. Especially the way the person answered it. The ball does not work in this situation. It doesn't sound like a big emotion-based thing, but a lot of times what people want is something that makes sense to them. So when somebody says, why won't you play with me? And they say that thing about the ball, that doesn't mean the first person is going to feel better, but they're being responded to, and somebody's giving them information that could have something to do with the conversation or problem solving, or at least respectfully responding to them.
Yeah, because if you always expect people to, oh, I said my feeling statement, so now they have to do what I want.
Right. Yeah. You're taking me back. Yeah, because that's a thing that happens with all of this. Of course, none of it works like that. For like a real important thing that occurred to me yesterday was that when you do have a feeling, just saying it out loud doesn't necessarily work. And anywhere in the conversation, everybody uses the word trigger now, and that used to come more, I think, from very strong, visceral, not visceral, but vivid PTSD flashback experiences. But now we know a lot more about trauma and the way that human emotions work. And so just because you're saying you can't just do this happy dialogue and have things go well all the time. No, it does not work that way. One of the things is when people get, I'll say, triggered or stimulated, they're really suddenly not thinking in give and take, sensibly structured dialogue that takes everybody's needs. When you get a twinge of irritation, a twinge of anger, feeling offended, something takes you back to another similar situation that you didn't enjoy, you're just in a whole different state. And that is one way that the conversation can then go wrong, if everybody just thinks I'm going to use the correct words and things are going to go my way.
Well, that's why I think in my classes, I used to have a peace table, and the kids would go to that peace table and they would sit there and talk about possible solutions. They would brainstorm like ways to solve the problem of Ed feeling lonely. But rarely did anyone, like if a kid was left out, did they go to the peace table? They would just complain to me. And I would say, well, why don't you go play with those people over there? There's a spot where you can sit and play with their game. And then they would do that. So I
That
don't
does
know.
have, that has some similarity to principled negotiation. Um, and that is that there are creative solution finding.
And maybe we have to do it internally sometimes.
Okay, what about that? How do you tell me?
Well, that's creative solution finding that you're talking about.
Mhm.
Sometimes the other person or the other people that that made you feel lonely are not going to talk to you because they're too busy playing boxball. So maybe you have to
Yeah,
go through your mind, oh gosh, I feel lonely when they won't let me play boxball. What can I do?
yeah, yeah,
Well, I guess I could go play with somebody else. I could play all by myself. I could roll down the hill like this. I could do that, that kind of thing. And then I could find a new friend to play with.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I'm hearing that in your books, you want to get used to, you want them to get used to having a nice large emotion vocabulary early on, large enough for their age group. And then that builds the foundation so they can scaffold on more emotional language and more emotional awareness, I guess, in order to know what words to use.
Yeah.
And you're saying that you don't want to, in the process, tell them that emotions make people do what you want them to do. That you tell them, I feel very sad, and that means that they're going to cure it for you. They're going to fix it all up and give you a perfect happy ending within 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, okay, I like that. So what were the, I don't know, what are the ways you're doing that in this story? Or the
Well, I'll go back to it. Okay.
Mhm.
Let's see if I can. Okay. So what one of the kids comes up and gives him a ball for the box ball. And he says, thank you. I feel included now.
Yeah,
So that would be great. Um, and this is the, what do you call it? The fantasy resolution. I mean, I don't know. I mean, there are some kids, I would say 1 out of 20 kids are that compassionate. The rest are like, we're playing this game. I'm too busy now. You weren't here when it started. Can't you see the lines? That's what most kids do. Um, so it's at this point where I feel lonely. Does this answer your question?
yeah, I'm seeing how what you're saying, you made it a pretty step-by-step process. And that I guess you're also implying that kids can handle a more complex story,
Yeah, I think,
a more realistic one that they see happening every day on the playground.
yeah. Um, maybe just right here, this is the climax of the story. Maybe if he just says, I feel lonely when you won't play with me. And then maybe I should just add more slides. What can I do? I can try to play and maybe make a list and go through those page by page. And then finally, we're starting a new round or we're starting again. You want to play this time,
Mhm.
that would
Yeah,
be,
that's interesting. Um, so it occurs to me that you could make one have an unhappy ending, and just to allow kids to know it. And at the same time, and that's not what you're saying, but it just came to my mind that um, at the same time, you're hoping they'll be encouraged by the books to use the emotion words.
yeah, I think
Um,
maybe this would be really cool. You say box ball or I feel lonely when you won't play with me part 1. And I feel lonely with me when you won't play with me part 2. And have them in the same book.
I'm in the same book. Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's I don't know if I've ever seen anything like that in a children's book. That's neat.
Yeah.
It has an ending, and then all they have to do is flip the page and say, and they'll see the title, I Feel Lonely When You Won't Play With Me, Part 2. That's, I'm not an author and I'm not a reviewer, but that sounds like it would work.
Yeah, I mean, it's so, and if I keep it simple, because this is only 8 slides, so, you know, and this should probably be stretched out to 16, and then I do another 16, and that's the 32 or 40 that we need, so that's perfect.
That's
And I
great.
think that should be maybe for all of them.
That they all have a part 2.
Yeah, because don't you think life is messy? And we don't all solve our problems immediately when just by using an I statement. That's just so fantastical.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. There's I said that whole thing about being stimulated, highly stimulated with an emotion, because with clients and a lot of times with couples, somebody will say exact words that make sense. They're being honest. They're also in a space where they're getting used to the fact that words are clumsy. But sometimes somebody will get an emotion, and if you really pay attention, you can tell it's really working on them inside. And they're like, say, really angry, even though they might be making this face. They're really angry. They might be smiling, but their jaw is locked,
Yeah.
And I and the other person unconsciously pick up on it, but I try very hard to work to consciously see why I'm sensing something happening. And if you ask that person, how are you feeling inside? They might say, I feel like I'm being boiled alive inside, or something like that. And you go, thank goodness I asked. And that means we can't really just do the whole dialogue negotiation thing right now, because we got something that needs to be sort of allowed to calm down, to be soothed, to take some time. Yeah, so in real life, when I feel and I need, so could you please, does not work that fast. It works.
Yeah.
in
There's
stop-
nuances. There
are nuances.
subtext. There's lots of space between the lines. There's things going on internally.
There should be, yeah, there are, and there have to be breaks and pauses.
And I think that's what, it's weird because I'm just using 40 words to build these little scenarios, but it's bringing out, by getting down to the bare bones, I think it's bringing out so much discussion.
Yeah,
it's amazing. I think this is,
it makes me think.
Yeah, this is a good let's wrap up right now, and anything you'd like to say.
Yeah, another thing that is used, in my opinion, in the process are breaks and pauses. When something's going to go off the rails, there's no need to continue talking. It's better to pause and hope that something can happen a few hours later or another day. That's very hard, but if you model it in your book, I think kids can get used to that. It takes away the catastrophic element of not getting what you want right now, today. That you will solve the problem, it just might take a few days. Something like that.
Yeah.
Part 1 and part 2. All right, that was great. Was that 20 minutes?
I'm sure. Let's end it and see what it says.
Flew by.